Hi, everybody. My name is Nathan Marke, and I'm the Chief Strategy Officer of Giacom. And welcome to episode 3 of our webinar series, How MSPs Can Monetize Gen AI. Now, in common with all of the episodes so far, it's been another crazy week in the world of Gen AI. Two huge announcements from two of the big Gen AI foundational model owners this week. So firstly, we saw Google launching their new Gemini enterprise platform, which kind of brings together, it looks like it brings together 6 or 7 different areas of Google AI into one place to just make it really easy for businesses to code with and start to embed AI into their businesses. So that was huge. But also this week as well, OpenAI have had a huge developer conference, and Sam Altman was launching a product called Agentic, which is really about making the OpenAI platform available for businesses to really easily spin up agent kits. And I thought actually on the subject of that, Sam Altman, as he often does, captured this move to agentic really beautifully. He said, Gen AI is moving from ask me anything to ask me to do anything for you as we move into the era of agents, which I think is a really interesting way of thinking about this. So it's really appropriate today that we've got one of the Giacom partners who perhaps is most forward thinking in terms of its use of agentic to chat to today. So a huge welcome to Lydiard of Giacom partner Techcare, who's very generously agreed to share his firm's journey. So Lewis, great to see you. Thank you so much for coming on. Please introduce yourself. And would you tell us a bit about Techcare to kick off?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Nathan. I really appreciate the big intro as well. That was that was quite warm. So thank you very much. My name's Lewis. I'm the Service Delivery Director at Techcare. Techcare are a Staffordshire-based managed service provider. Primarily serve businesses in the construction arm. We really focus on that kind of strategic technology partnership for a lot of our clients. Really sitting with our feet under the table with them, to be honest. Focusing around implementing the right technology, tech that just works for our clients so we can stop having conversations about the nitty-gritty and really focusing on that business change, driven by technology, not just that support really. So like I say, we're really moving forwards internally with a lot of the agentic stuff, a lot of AI usage, really just trying to be that test bed, that customer zero for a lot of agentic, to be honest. We've seen kind of a natural growth through, the kind of learning and the adoption curve of AI through a lot of our businesses, a lot of our clients that we support. And it's really matched the alignment with how Techcare have operated with AI as well. Our origins were that high street computer shop, to be honest. Grew up into a bit of a generalist MSP, IT support, infrastructure, that kind of thing. And then found ourselves in that position of, the businesses that we were supporting were asking more business level questions. They were asking more, strategic level questions to leverage the technology that they have in place with them. I think that leads us to that key for Techcare, really. The key for us is understanding our client's business rather than just understanding the technology. That shifts focus of things really to those efficiency improvements, the security and the compliance, the growth enablement. And I suppose that is what makes Techcare unique, really. It's that deep client relationship that we have with a lot of our partners, and the early adopters natures of it all, really. AI, that customer zero mindset really being, key for that whole relationship.
Listen, I'd love to return to that later, but you've said some really interesting things there already about being really close to your customer's business. Really understanding their business is critical to success in AI, and you've obviously got some great skills in that. I'd love to return to that later if we can, but maybe if we can start off, Lewis, by, you were one of the very, very early adopters of Copilot when it was launched November 2023, and you've obviously adopted it internally as well as sort of staying ahead of your customer demand. I wonder if you can just talk to us a bit about that journey that you've been on with adoption of Copilot and then more latterly into Studio and Agentic.
Yeah, of course. I think I consider ourselves really quite, in that early adoption curve of that in the SMB market for sure. We started out as everyone did, random AI chat usage, ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, all the popular names that are out there, just because it was bubbling away in the news, it was bubbling away in current affairs and that kind of thing. We got some Copilot licenses on some power users internally, a few efficiency gains there, like emails, documentation, and that kind of thing. A few quick wins, really. And then we started exploring those agentic building blocks. We started putting together some really loose, kind of relatively simple examples, to be honest, which I'd very much like to go into, to be fair, but I can go on and on and on. And then started.
Well, actually,
developing that.
Lewis, I mean, if you can share that with our partners, that's bang on exactly what we'd like to hear. Please do share as much as you can.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, in those agentic building blocks, like I say, we've slowly been putting together some like iterative versions of, a few key examples that we actually do use internally now. So a few, standard operating procedure helpers, playbook helpers and that kind of thing, and then a few like technical solutions helpers. So a couple of examples that are out there in the wild at the moment within Techcare that we, as a technical team and as a back office team and as a sales team, we get a lot of benefit from. The standard operating procedure helper, like the run books and that kind of thing, really, really beneficial for our technical teams because it puts, relatively time sensitive, relatively, urgent access documentation right at the forefront of our engineers. So things like, cyber breaches, user account breaches, ransomware, malware, all these kind of things that, you take a step back and you look at it and go, there are activities where we don't want our engineers sifting through documentation, trying to find the right book, trying to find the right step. They're all really, really time sensitive exercises. Your ransomware, you want to contain that host straight away. You want that off the network. We don't want the person dealing with that case having to go and find the book, having to go and find the step to detail that is the thing that you need to do. And sometimes in those high pressure environments, that's, people missteps, human error happens. So we wanted something to deliver that straight to the engineer, straight to the technician. And that's where that standard operating procedure helper really benefits. We put a few sources of knowledge in there, a few knowledge bases, few SOPs that are how we deal with these scenarios, just as standard as every other MSP probably would, and every other security house probably would. But it puts it into a format that's really nicely accessible. A user can sit down at Copilot chat, integrate straight into the agent and go, this person's just called me, their account's getting locked, all of their files are changing file names. What do I do? And it will go into each standard operating procedure, go into each playbook, and just present the information straight away. Here's the immediate steps. Here's some remediation. Here's some containment information, and here's some comms you can send to the client. A real nice, real simple, just interaction with the agent on that side of things. And the solution helper as well. We found, as many MSPs in our kind of size, documentation absolutely is key. And we really try and drive that when implementing new technology, new platforms. At Techcare, we really go in on quite a lean tech stack. So we only have a select few vendors, a select few partners that we do work with. That allows us to be really quite thorough with documentation, really quite deep, really quite, expansive on what we choose to document. A solution we implemented, a technology we implemented for Microsoft 365 tenancy management recently. We put a really nice piece of work around the documentation and found, as a bit of a wraparound in using agentic for that, integrating a Copilot agent with all of that documentation and giving it that knowledge and giving it that knowledge source, not only let multiple different business units interact with that knowledge that wouldn't normally have access to it because it's locked away in some knowledge base somewhere, but it also freed up the engineer that implemented that technology so much, because the nature of it, an engineer that leads a technology deployment becomes that go-to person. And I've been through that myself with a technical background. I've seen it happen to others, and I saw it happen in this situation. And we stepped back and we said, we could alleviate this. We could build an agent to be that go-to, to eliminate that single point of contact. So, engineers could interact with the agent to go, how do I set up a certain tenant in this platform? How do I look at what policy is being deployed? What are the conditional access policies for XYZ customer? All really kind of nice, usable interactions with knowledge, really. And those two examples have been kind of like, they've come together, gone through a few different versions, gone through a few bits of development and that kind of thing. And at the point now where we're integrating API hook-ins and that kind of thing to platforms to then go and get information from external sources. That's adding another level to all this. So, implementing these things on the real early days at really, really basic fundamental levels, purely just through Copilot Chat and Copilot Studio, we've started building on those now and developing those as actual internal projects, and with the kind of the aim to have one, Techcare Copilot, for example, that is the all-knowing, the all kind of hands on everything, kind of CEO level touch points of knowledge, and can deep dive on business units, and has that kind of back and forth conversational pace to it. I think that big picture, I mean, that's it's way down the line. So maybe come back to me in a couple of weeks on that one, and I'll give you a version of it.
Listen, that's I mean, there's so much there, isn't there? If I can just pick a few questions out of that, if I can, just to sort of help with understanding, I guess. So you firstly talked about your standard operating procedure helper. So I imagine in an MSP like you've got a lot of standard operating procedures, which can be quite complex, where you've built out processes for how you respond to incident management when partners phone you up, or where you get signals that there's a challenge, right? And the challenge always with standard operating procedures is adherence, making sure that you follow the rules. And this becomes more tricky because you've got humans, and human beings all like to follow different things and different processes. And adherence to that process is really hard. And then you've got very junior people, and then you've got more senior people, and more senior people probably very experienced at following the SOP. Junior people maybe wouldn't have a Scooby about where to go. So that it seems like that is a great solution for shifting left, helping lower cost people or less experienced people to make sure they adhere, but also presumably freeing up your more skilled people to spend their time really getting to the troubleshooting point for the customer.
That was actually probably one of our initial kind of thought exercises with it. It was, if we have a new start on the managed services team, the first day, and everyone's occupied, everyone's busy, everyone's doing this, that, and the other, and they get a phone call, and it is a large client getting ransomware. That consistency and that continuity across the business is, really why people partner with us. They partner to have that, that security that their business is protected by Techcare, not by so-and-so individual on the managed services team, not by myself, not by the owner. It's, you pay for that Techcare standard, really, and that's what we wanted to standardize.
And the way it's used within the business is one of your managed services team will literally just chat to an agent in Teams, a normal IM, but it will then help you to follow through a series of prompts, the operating procedures, to get the information out of the customer, make sure you follow the right processes, make sure you go into the right systems, make sure you deliver the right solution back.
Yeah, exactly that. We've got a few, iterations of this that are now kind of getting to that live position, working with like agent teams. So, when this first started being talked about by Microsoft and Copilot Studio first started becoming a thing, Microsoft talked a lot about having SMEs, individual hyper-specified, subject matter experts on specific tasks, and then having almost
how do I do a backup? How do I do it? Yeah.
So you've got your backup expert, you've got your cyber expert, you've got your solution expert over here, and then having almost an employee manager structure to the agents. We started experimenting with that, and with that comes its challenges. You have to really know your prompt engineering and really kind of tweak things quite aggressively, and it can all unwind in one wrong prompt, but it's starting to become that agent team concept is really starting to work now in Copilot Studio. And just coming back to what you said there about making sure those steps are followed, especially with the solutions helper. That solutions helper now also knows about our compliance bot. So it's another agent we've been building in the background that hooks in with a lot of the work that our compliance is striving for. So we're going, and we've achieved quite a lot of these certifications, like your ISOs, your 9001s, your 27001s, cyber essentials, all those kind of things. That solutions helper bot and the standard operating procedure bot now knows to also, it's got to keep in mind these policies over here that are so inherent to the company and must be lived and breathed. So it brings also, not in an intrusive way, but in the way it delivers standard operating procedures, it will go, oh, just to let you know, this is part of this policy and process that relates to ISO 27001.
But your
it drips these things in.
your prototyping presumably has been very much about training the agent as well and making sure that it's got access to the right information, the right documentation to deliver the right answer.
Yeah, absolutely. When we first started building these agents, we were simply just uploading PDFs to the knowledge. We were just giving it very, very specific access and very, very limited access, I think being one of the key points, because we didn't want it going out to the web to search for things like SOPs. So we've limited that now. Well, in the first iteration, but then over recent updates and very recently, as of last week, I think it was, shifting that solutions helper, that SOP helper into GPT-5, so it can think and reason and understand concepts. We've now, with that iteration, enabled web for that agent, so it can understand the SOP, but also pull in external sources. So
right.
It's got the SOP, it's got isolate the account, isolate the machine, do this, do that, and also mentions things like Enter ID. It mentions the vendors that we work with. It mentions the technology that we've got in play. So you can then also prompt it to go, oh, how do I isolate a machine using our managed detection and response platform? How do I do this in Enter ID? How do I do this with so-and-so platform? And that's not written in the documentation. It's not written in the standard operating procedure as those particular steps, but that agent can then go and pull that information from the web, give it in the context of the chat, and then become that, it's again, just being that helper, being that.
Because of course your documentation internally will never keep up with the pace of change, will it? So this ability to, view and look at your very reliable sources internally, but then also to look externally, and then presumably to update documentation as well through an approval process, means you're going to move ahead so much faster.
That's kind of like you touched on the keyword there being documentation, and one of our next steps for this agent team is to integrate API into a documentation platform where all of our documentation sits. So that then becomes the knowledge source and the way that we interact with the knowledge source. Obviously, our documentation, it takes a bit of work, a bit of manual agent building to get the knowledge from the knowledge base to the agent at this point. Once that API hooking is done and cooked and the prompt is right, then that unlocks something again.
The other bit I loved about what you were describing there with your solution helper is you're giving access into your tenant management in your Microsoft tenant. And of course, the thing about the Microsoft tenant is it's useful for everybody across the business, whether you're in compliance, you're in legal, you're in commercial, you're billing the customer, you're trying to sell the next thing to the customer, you want to operate. All of that information is really valuable, but it's locked away, isn't it? So giving access to that capability is really powerful as well.
Yeah. So historically, Techcare, we're still very operations heavy. We're very technical heavy in terms of our team. Our back office, our admin, our sales is relatively lean. But the information is so rich in the technical side of things, and the access to that information is so valuable for those other teams. I had a situation the other day, actually. We are working, we had a bit of a product meeting, working on a new product idea that needed some assets from this very platform, in the form of some PDFs. I would normally be the go-to for that, and then I would maybe speak to someone on technical and that kind of thing to bring that information together. In the product meeting, sat discussing it, we're looking for the assets. I was like, not quite sure where I get this asset from. Obviously didn't make that very known in the meeting, but quickly, agent, how do I find this export? Where is it in the platform? Yeah, here you go, here. Yeah, absolutely fine. Here's the PDF. And things like that. And it's great to see from my side, from seeing both sides of the touching technical, but then touching the sales side of things, and even on the billing side of things, being able to interact with this agent to go, can you give me the license discrepancy on all of our tenants for purchase licensing and assign licensing, and marry those up. It's a really nice, what used to be quite a manual job to literally go in and check, are all the licenses that we have purchased assigned so we can bill for them. That information is obtainable now very easily from anyone in the business.
Yeah. What it makes me think of is that there's going to be a bit of a rift in MSP. I think MSPs that are really accessing this capability are going to become so much faster, so much more agile, and ultimately it's going to affect the price point, isn't it, of IT services generally. How much can you charge for an IT service if you're deploying agents and you're using this really effectively to deliver exceptional customer service versus the way you used to work in a very manual way? It's going to enable you to be more profitable, but also to scale perhaps as well, which has always been a classic challenge for the MSP. I think that's fascinating.
The key word being do more with less, I think, gets bounced around so much, and it's something that we constantly, it's our messaging outbound to clients. But I think, just in practice, we are kind of using that. We're living that really.
But also from doing that, it's a wonderful message out to your customers, that you are customer zero and that you're doing this. So therefore, what are the opportunities in your business, Mr. Customer, where we could come and help you to do what we've done to you, because every business will have that. On that note, actually, I'd be really, really interested to understand what you're doing with your customers around agentic. Wonder if you've got any stories or things you could tell us there about how you're changing your value proposition or your go-to-market proposition using this capability.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, we've got quite a few, we've done quite a few sessions in terms of earlier this year, we did quite a few, sessions with, business leaders, just workshops really, just kind of give us your problems. Let's map your business process out, and what areas here can we benefit from efficiency gains. That's where, the efficiency gains is the name of the game on this one. It's the most translatable probably value, the most tangible value that our customers will see. And we built quite a few in that, in that exercise. I think we had niching down into construction, obviously gave us exposure to a lot of construction businesses that we were kind of naturally serving anyway. But that highlighted an area for, a tender agent, for example. So one of many, effectively a translator that, you put some basic, survey results, this, that, and the other through it, and out comes a big, long, bulky legal tender document on the other side of it. It did that translation for you, and vice versa as well. The tender goes in, the simple actual deliverables and actionables come out. That was a really nice use case for that kind of workshop. And I think a lot of our experience for our clients and the conversations that we're having with our clients do come down to that, what's the actual, how do we reach the agent piece here? Like, how do we get to developing that agent? At the moment, the adoption is very high. The education is not not quite as aggressive as the adoption curve. So it does lead to quite a lot of workshop examples, sitting down, literally mapping out business process, mapping out how do you go from your potential, like your lead, how does it become a tangible deliverable? What is the process? How does that transfer through the business? Similar to a lot of work that our sister company does, Techcare Digital, in the digital space. So web design, app design, game design even, and like media creation. A lot of those processes, a lot of the dev processes, the development processes are, let's map your entire business out, print everything out, all the spreadsheets, all the documents, all the forms. Let's lay it on the table. What's the process? Draw it all the way through. And then you look at it from a top level and go, what's the document here that we can pick out and make more efficient, and if we remove this from your process, what does that free up? What efficiencies does that create? how does that, how does that aid growth? I think it's a very similar exercise with agentic and with AI usage in general, to be honest. It's
Yeah,
workshop. It's
yeah,
it's that discovery of, it's not a technical conversation anymore.
yeah.
It's much more that strategic conversation, that business level conversation.
And in construction, don't know much about construction, but I imagine that it is an environment that's full of RFPs. So you win a contract, and it's all about subcontracting, isn't it? So how do you find a subcontractor to do X, Y, or Z? And there would be a standard process with the standard set of legals and commercials and all, building
Mm.
that sort of environment as an end-to-end process and saying I can just get agentic to fix that for you is incredible, isn't it? The return on investment on that in terms of agility, speed, efficiency must be really significant for these companies.
Yeah, I think construction similar to any niche, I suppose. It's a very well documented industry.
Mm.
That's the point. It all needs to follow certain, safety regulation, certain guidelines, certain, that everything is documented. There's a lot of paperwork in construction,
Yeah,
and that wasn't the aim for niching into that specific area, but it's just throughout these exercises, that's what we found as, where the benefit comes. And
yeah,
it's probably
yeah.
similar across the board: medical, retail. All of this is written down. it's it's all written down. None of us are just trying to, we people that work at Tesco, McDonald's, Caterpillar, any business that you can think of, it's all figured out, it's all written down. All of these processes exist. How do we pick those apart and create something from that?
But such rich opportunities for an MSP to go after to add more value than you'd ever think, right?
Mm.
And to build a strategic relationship with the customer. You have touched on something really interesting there, which I think a lot of MSPs are wrestling with, which is skill set. Because a classical infrastructure MSP, your customer will be quite technical often, but well, it could be a business person, but often it's an IT conversation. Whereas this is very much a business conversation. Now, it sounds like you must have been very helped by having Techcare Digital and having that kind of application development type capability. But it sounds like you're saying that's pretty essential to get on in agentic, is the ability to sit down with a business owner, understand a business process, map it end to end, do the time and motion stuff, and then translate that into some sort of automation.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's that consultative level discussion that, that is the element here that's so valuable. And that's only come from, development sessions that I've sat in on, exposure to the way that these guys work and the different way of thinking. I suppose it's not your traditional MSP service desk break fix, that kind of mentality. The technology is different now. It's vastly different now. All of these tools and all these things are available to really anyone. Anyone with a
Yeah,
Copilot license can access these tools. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's no longer hidden behind a server cabinet, behind loads of CLI, behind all the technical in the background. Come back to like I say, our tech stack. The tech just works. These conversations, they really stop. We really stop having conversations about my laptop's really slow, this, that, and the other. It comes down to that consultative driven problem solving mindset that's still in an engineer, very much in the technician. Those synapses still fire. The very same synapses still fire, but the end result is different. It's
yeah,
solving
yeah,
that business level problem with
yeah.
technology.
It's interesting because we've started to see now a trend in M&A in MSPs, where some of the larger MSPs are whizzing around and buying up those types of skills to bring them into the business, to put at the front of the business. I just saw a press release this morning about Advania, the Swedish MSP. They've got really big scale, and they just made a pretty significant acquisition to buy exactly those sorts of skill sets into their business. It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? If you're going to take on this next part of the journey, this consulting capability becomes real gold.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think it's just the nature of the way that Techcare has grown and the way that, the kinds of businesses that we are partnered up with. We have a very niche, very specific ICP, really. Our ideal client is it comes down to, you take the numbers, you take the industry, you take everything away from that, and it comes down to the people in those businesses want to grow. They want to do more with their business. They've got aspirations to get wherever that may be. And that's really aligned with Techcare. It's it's a very similar growth journey that we are on. So when we can sit in the room and have these conversations, and it's not bogged down by my network's slow, my phones don't ring, these kind of things that you may experience in a QBR, the conversations are vastly different.
Yeah. Well, look, I guess a last question here, which hopefully will answer the kind of title of the webinar really is how are you making money from this? What's your view on it? Are you explicitly charging for these things, or is it more, it's just become an intrinsic part of Techcare and how you go to market? This is what you get from the relationship with us. Can you just talk us through a bit of that?
It's a really interesting grey area as it stands, because it's also new. Going back to what I was talking about before, that workshop environment is really the benefit there, and those are obviously monetizable sessions. It's not necessarily professional services, it's not managed services, it's very much consultancy, sitting with business leaders, department heads, all that kind of thing. It's very much a workshop session. We'll come out of it with ideas, 100%. The game now is, I suppose, productizing that. I think one thing that we have seen in like the smaller, maybe a little bit more technical elements to this are things like AI readiness audits, AI readiness sessions, like exploring people's tenants and kind of identifying where there may be risk to data. Links heavily with data compliance. A lot of this conversation does. One of the key things for Techcare really when it comes to AI sales as well, and agent sales before we've even got to agentic, is a bit of a rule of thumb of no vanity projects. We're not, just because you want AI in your business, that's not a good enough reason to put AI into your business. There has to be a return. There has to be some benefit to this.
It's not a technology sale, right? It's not a license sale. It is a business value sale.
Yeah. I've been talking to a lot of our clients that do have Copilot licenses, and through us, and Copilot chat and all that kind of thing, you can see the metrics, and everyone's using it and that kind of thing. I have a lot of conversation with those business leaders, and really do ask them, what is your use case? What's your AI portfolio? Tell me some use cases. I'm really interested, because everyone's using it differently. If the answer to that is I use it to write emails, then okay, I'll save you X amount of money per month. It's a bit of a, like I say, the no vanity projects is quite a key thing for us. I think it comes down to, if you really want to have a return from agentic and have a return from AI, it's exploring business practice and exploring business process, and understanding that your business or your department or XYZ users are ready for AI. That data is safe. That data is protected. That's, like I say, a bit more in the weeds of the technical side of things, but that's definitely, as part of that adoption curve, trying to squash the shadow AI a little bit. Stop using ChatGPT. Stop putting all your company information into Claude. Come on the Copilot journey. We'll have a bit of a look over the environment, make sure everything's kind of protected in a way of permissions, sensitivity labels, all that kind of thing. Make sure that's right first, and then we explore the possibility of agentic and that kind of thing. A lot of these things run on symmetrical tracks, to be honest. And then, does it become a managed service? Does it become part of that offering? Does it become part of continuous consultancy? What that looks like down the line will be made very obvious. I feel like it will just happen in the industry.
Yeah, continuous consultancy is a really interesting term, actually, because it feels more like, I've been thinking about this like a managed service. Anything that changes as quickly as it does seems obvious to be a managed service, but actually I like the idea of a continuous consultancy, because that really describes what you're actually doing there. You're going in, engagement with the customer, deliver some value, move out, come back in 3 months later. How have you got on with that? What's next? How can we tweak? How can we change? How can we improve? And of course, the technology will have changed and improved in that 3 months.
That is key, really. I think there's one of the things that we're doing a lot of research on at the moment is how to report, how to bring metrics into agentic. So looking at, finding a dashboard where we can see all the agents that are out there in our client's estate, and see adoption and see usage and see success rate, see hallucination, all those kind of things, all those metrics somehow being pulled from all of our tenants to go, this may be, when GPT-5 landed in Copilot, it's quite clear that this messed up a lot of our agents. Let's go in and fix it. Let's review that and that kind of thing. I think that will become part of that managed services, similar to how you're monitoring services, similar to how you're monitoring, containers, all that kind of thing in the infrastructure side of things translates to, the agentic conversation, really.
It does feel like that. It feels like there's some consultancy, which is about how do you apply it to the business to get business value. But then there's also, as you deploy agentic, the business is going to become reliant on agentic. So what happens if it goes wrong? What happens if it fails? How do we recover? How do we reverse out of? Or
what is the business continuity of no longer this individual not being in the business, this AI flow, this
my group of agents have all gone offline. How do I transact with my customer?
What happens now? I think that part of it, and that disaster recovery comes back, the monitoring comes back, the all these,
which is core MSP skill, isn't
core it? MSP, all these MSP, metrics come back. But as it stands at the moment, we are talking about things that don't yet exist. So
no, I get it.
But I think it comes to, the in terms of the monetization, it is grey. It is so ready to be explored as well. That you look at how Copilot and that platform changes over time. And I mean, we've seen it literally over recent weeks now. You go into Copilot and there's all sorts of different options of agents. You've got the researcher, you've got the analyst, but then you've got other ones that are real specific niche agents. So there must be something going on Microsoft's side to be able to have maybe like a platform where agents are deployable, this, that, and the other, and we can somehow bring that into.
I want an agent with green hair today, or one with red hair, one with yellow hair, and you can just deploy it into a specific use case.
Exactly. Then we start getting into the conversation again. It comes back to that software dev conversation. We start talking about IP, we start talking about ownership, we start talking about all those kind of things. So again, a lot of things that need to be, unpacked and reviewed over time. And I think it will come to it where me and you might have another conversation in 2 weeks' time and it's all changed and Microsoft have gone back on it anyway.
Now listen, Lewis, that's been absolutely amazing. We better draw it to a close. But the big salient lesson that I've got out of this is that this is a market that's moving really quickly. It can deliver huge value to customers, and really as an MSP, you've got to be stuck in and you've got to be using this technology and really understanding it, because it is going to very significantly change the way that businesses work. And to stay relevant, you've got to be in it. You've got to be in it to win it. That's been incredible. Not on the subject, actually, you mentioned Microsoft. It'd be good to talk to them about what they're doing. In episode 4, I'm interviewing Microsoft. So I'm interviewing a guy called Guy Gregory, who's very technical at Microsoft, is involved in building agents and also working and supporting partners to build out agentic. So hopefully that will be a really interesting next step on from the discussion we've had today, Lewis. Listen, really appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed for giving it so generously. Really appreciate it, Lewis.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me.